All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to challenge the very foundation of how society's rules actually function versus what they, claim to do on paper. We interact with the law literally every single day, right? And we often just assume that the rules governing us are perfectly aligned with justice and order. But what if they aren't? What if the very concepts meant to protect us have quietly drifted completely off course? We are unpacking a fascinating theoretical framework today that exposes this hidden reality. So, we got to start with a bit of a provocative question to dismantle a universally accepted idea. Do legal concepts automatically achieve their intended goals? I mean, just because a law is written with a specific, noble intention, does that automatically mean it successfully carries out that intention in the real world, say years or even decades later? This question is the absolute engine driving our entire analysis today. Okay, here's our intellectual map for this explainer. We're looking at the crisis of concepts, 3 objective examples, the transition from what to why, the evaluation tools, and finally the scope and roadmap. Starting with Section 1, the crisis of concepts and the functional gap. There's a stark contrast in how we view the law. On one side, you've got legal formalism. Think of it like someone who blindly follows a recipe. They measure every ingredient perfectly, but they never actually taste the food. It's an approach that completely obsesses over the literal text. It asks, have the exact technical conditions of the definition been met? But it completely ignores the context. It never stops to ask if the law is actually doing what it was designed to do in our modern society. It essentially reduces dynamic, living legal tools into hollow words. Actual function, on the other hand, that asks how the food actually tastes. It demands we look at the real-world impact and whether the law's original goal is actually being met. And that brings us to what's called the functional gap. See, when lawmakers create a concept, they have a highly specific goal in mind to protect society, right? But over time, as the world naturally evolves, that same concept can operate in a way that completely contradicts its original purpose. This is huge because it means the laws you rely on might be drifting far, far away from actually protecting you. Actually, scratch that. It's not just an accident. It's a systemic, measurable distance between text and action. Moving to Section 2, 3 objective examples in law. Okay, let's look at property to start. Classically, it's defined as absolute sovereignty over what you own. Sounds great, right? But what happens when that sovereignty allows a few entities to aggressively hoard resources, literally choking out the living space and economic freedom of everyone else? Is that law still serving its original purpose to protect society? Then take civil liability. Traditionally, it simply meant fixing a wrong by finding fault and restoring balance. But think about how that works today. Victims often get completely lost in an endless, expensive corridor of proving that fault. They're drowning in bureaucratic paperwork and legal fees, while justice is just delayed forever. Finally, contracts. The textbook tells us a contract is based on mutual free consent. But come on, when was the last time you read a 50-page terms of service agreement before clicking accept? When a contract happens between 2 parties with massively unequal bargaining power, is it truly a free choice or just kind of a rigged game? Think of these 3 examples as basically 3 small beams of light, illuminating the much larger systemic problem of prioritizing definitions over real-world outcomes. They aren't the final answers, for sure, but rather powerful symptoms. They show us exactly why we need a completely new way to evaluate our legal system. All right, on to Section 3, the transition from what to why. So here's the deal. We have to stop merely asking what is it and start rigorously demanding why was it made and what does it actually do. The traditional legal establishment is usually highly satisfied with just knowing the meaning of a word, but meaning only draws the boundaries. It stays entirely silent on the ultimate goal. This transition from what to why and how is literally the crucial methodological shift for this entire framework. To accomplish this shift, we need to precisely define function as the living, breathing impact a law has on our daily lives. In this context, function isn't what the official dictionary definition claims it does. It's the actual, tangible role the legal concept plays in the messy, lived experiences of real human beings. That's the real test. And we also need to define purpose. This acts as the ultimate benchmark to measure whether the law's actual function has strayed from its intended path. Think of purpose as the bullseye on a target. If we don't clearly identify that original target, well, we simply cannot measure how far off course the current function has drifted. Let's dive into Section 4, Evaluation Tools and the Reconstructive Method. Because without systematic tools, any critique of the law remains dangerously trapped as mere personal taste, rather than rigorous analysis. If we just rely on a vague gut feeling that a law is unfair, we don't have a systemic judgment that can actually change things. We absolutely need a reconstructive method that combines analytical philosophy with comparative law.
And this brings us to the 5-window look. This is a real game changer. It's the macro-level tool, basically a chronological retrieval process used to find a concept's original beating heart. We start at window 1, the deepest textual layers of civilization, like the ancient Avesta and Gathas, to locate the very roots of a rule. Window 2 asks us to map its historical function, like what did this rule actually do for people back then? Window 3 is where we act as historical detectives, identifying the exact moment in time where the law deviated from its original path. Window 4 translates that ancient idea into its modern equivalent so we can grasp it today. And finally, window 5 strips away centuries of later interpretations, arguments, and red tape to extract the core operational principle, basically the raw, original intent of the law.
Okay, so once we've retrieved and translated that concept to modern times, we take it and weigh it on the 3-gauge scale. This is our micro-level tool. First up, predictability. Does the law actually give citizens a clear, reliable expectation of what will happen in their lives? Second, viability. Does this legal concept actively support human life, growth, and flourishing, or does it stifle our ability to survive? And third, synergy. Does the law foster cooperation and harmony within society, or does it create friction and pit us against each other? So when a legal concept no longer provides predictability, viability, or synergy, when its actual function in society contradicts its original righteous purpose, it falls into what the source calls functional drooge. It's essentially an operational deviation from truth and order. Things have gone off the rails. Finally, Section 5, Scope and Roadmap of Research. Now, as a researcher evaluating their own legal system, the author warns against a highly dangerous trap called conceptual confiscation. It's basically rewriting history to justify today's biases. It's a vital methodological confession. You just cannot read ancient texts through the lens of modern legal jargon just to justify a predetermined modern conclusion. The analysis has to remain fiercely objective to its historical context. This intellectual journey unfolds in 3 clear steps: tracing philosophical roots, building practical evaluation tools, and defending this new horizon. This first volume we're exploring today is purely foundational. It sets up the genealogy, establishes the mythological foundations of order and deviance, constructs the 3-gauge scale, and defends this methodology against critiques. The actual surgery on specific laws, well, that comes later. So we're going to leave you with this final vital question to ponder before the next volumes apply these very tools to the laws governing our lives. When we look closely at our daily lived experiences, are the legal concepts surrounding us promoting Asha, true order, synergy, and viability? Or have they quietly slipped into the drooge, a functional deviance where the law on paper completely fails the reality of the people? It's a paradigm shift that forces us to look past the ink on the page and demand that our laws actually do the work they promise to do.